it was somewhat of that and also somewhat in the moment whilst I was inking. And I was like, oh, this could do with a little bit more because I'm a traditional painter and artist as well. And like I've been looking at other artists like Todd McFarlane when he goes in and does all of those little kind of bits and pieces and he's really excited when he's talking about it. And I'm like, maybe I'll give that a go. And this is really addictive and fun. Hi, I'm Steve Coffin, creator of Helga's Hornz, Derek the Cat, and Boundary 7. You can find me at stevecoffin.com and also at Steve Coffin Art on Instagram. You're watching and listening to Two Geeks Talking.
Good morning, afternoon, evening, everyone. Two Geeks Talking is an entertainment industry interview show where we interview the creative people from the comic, film, TV, movie, and video game industries. And of course, I'm your host, Kurt Sasso. We're joined today by a very talented individual. He's a comic creator, he's an artist, he is a lover of coffee, among other things. Here, he is also a family man and a very creative talent in his own right. He's the creator of Helga's Hornz, and it has been a long time since he was last on Two Geeks Talking. I'm thinking about a decade. We're joined by the ever-talented Steve Coffin. How are you doing today?
Hi, thanks for having me. Yeah, it's been a while, eh?
Yeah, we've grown up a bit. I honestly can't remember. It's great having you back on. It's been far too long, but for those that don't know anything about yourself as a creative person, tell us who you are and what you're bringing to Two Geeks Talking today.
Sure. I'm a comic book creator and artist, currently working on a book called Helga's Hornz, comedy action comic book. It's kind of in the vibe of the A-Team and like draws from that, the kind of kookiness of the Avengers TV show, the British one with John Steed and Emma Peel, that kind of vibe. And various other books. I've done comic strip books, did Derek the Cat, which is in the kind of tradition of like Peanuts and Garfield. And someone once said it was extra weird Garfield, so that was nice, I guess. I've also done sci-fi with Boundary 7 and 2 or 3 kids books as well. So Helga's Hornz is an action comedy comic book, features 3 female special operatives. There's Helga, who the story is named after, Boom Boom Doris, who's the explosive expert, Chainsaw Annie, who is like the muscle and the mechanic kind of thing, and also Katana Sue, and she's like very much involved with like computers, and obviously her name gives her the hint that she's got katana sword. She's like martial arts too. The story revolves around their mission and adventures and a mysterious like organization called the Agency who employs them. I wanted it to be like not everything's explained, so you don't quite know everything about them. It's not like this is what they do, this is their boss, and blah blah blah. So what I did is they get their messages through like a numbers station and they have to like decode it to find out what their mission is. There's various adventures that they go on. The first one is kind of like a spy adventure where they've got to go and escort someone across country and ninjas and all kinds of stuff. And the second one is more like a military based thing. It draws on like Kelly's Heroes, that kind of vibe, you know, and you'll notice that if you look deeper into what I'm doing, there's all kinds of little Easter eggs, and it's like, oh, this is a homage to blah, blah, blah. And so then the third one is going to come out February next year. It's a supernatural semi-horror, like 70s horror. Like, so it's not like that super, super scary, like, well, not slasher, but I'll let you know now, there's a certain creature lurking in the woods, terrorizing a villager. Yeah. Like, it's not going to be all out gore and that. Like, there's a fine balance that I strike between like the seriousness and the comedy, you know. And a lot of that is, as I write it, I'm like, am I leaning too far one way or too far the other? And I'm kind of my own kind of barometer. There was things in the first book that got left out. Like, you read the first one, yeah? Yeah. So it's quite obvious where the guy is transporting whatever it is he's transporting. It's in his toilet department. But there was going to be a bit more made of that. But I was like, yeah, maybe we don't need to do that. There was a whole scene between Helga being captured by Nazis, but they're artisanal cheese Nazis. So it's like, it's a defusing with the comedy, you know. There was a bit more with that, with a bit more language, because they're called the air horns, the name of their, and the Nazi guy was going to call them something slightly ruder. I was like, nah, it doesn't need that, you know. I like to keep the light balance, you know.
It's wonderful to see your creative talent has grown over the years too, and the fact that you've done so many amazing comic books here. Is there a moment that you can recall where you experimented in storytelling or illustration that changed your approach to creating comics?
Yeah, recently between number one of Helga's Horns and number two, I was rereading it and I thought it's too clean. And I started to do more kind of extra grit. If you look at the second book, where I started to do it more, there's a couple of panels that jump to mind. There's a sequence where Helga is trapped. She's parachuted into a place, and she's held down by a couple of snipers. And I started doing like lots of grit and texture and stuff like that. And I can't stop doing it, and it's everywhere now.
Is there a reason why you wanted to add that type of hatching or realism in your line work? Is it not just because it was clean, but it was just, did you want to try something new artistically?
Yeah, it was somewhat of that, and also somewhat in the moment whilst I was inking, and I was like, oh, this could do with a little bit more, like, because I'm a traditional painter and artist as well. It kind of like overlapped. I was like, yeah, you know what? It could do with a bit of that. And like, I've been looking at other artists like Todd McFarlane when he goes in and does all of those little kind of bits and pieces, and like, and he's really excited when he's talking about it. And I'm like, maybe I'll give that a go. And it's like, this is really addictive and fun.
And that's what I didn't really know about you, was the fact that you had a classical background and the fact that you like Paul Gauguin. And that's one of my questions later on down the road. But how does that classical training shape your logic and structure beneath your cartoony surface of Helga's Horns?
I'm always about structure. When you're drawing something, I haven't got an example to hand, but I'm always mapping out like the face, and anything that you draw is a shape to start with. No matter how detailed it is, it has to be a shape to sell the realism of it. And if you can draw it as a shape, if you think of like a basketball has stripes on it, yeah? And as you turn, that stripe stays in the same place, yeah? So that could be an anchor point for, say, like your nose and things like that, you know? And if you're looking at something like, I've gone and drawn buildings before with my traditional art, and it gets scary when you're drawing them. You're like, oh my God. And then you're like, no, none of that. It's all shapes. So it's a square with a ball on top and a triangle, and then you can break it down. So yeah, structure is very important. And if you can draw something with the structure and you're thinking of it, when you turn it, you've got that angle covered already, you know? You can imagine it in your brain, you know?
I went back to school for visual arts and film from an IT background. So I went from completely logical to creative and for 4 years. And it was a real shift in mentality for understanding shapes, light, shadow, form, things like that. Color theory as well was really amazing, I thought, especially when it came to lighting and things like that. But you don't really understand it until you go to see it, say, like the DIA, the Detroit Institute of the Arts, and you just wander among the amazing paintings there. Is that still like that for you when you look upon not only the world but also classic paintings? Do you still find wonder in art?
Oh, totally. Yeah. Like I would say every few months we end up going to the art gallery on the free night and having a walk around and visit the paintings we like, you know. And what you're saying there about color as well, I love that. Like, I love to play with color, like the complementary opposite colors and things like that. You know, you're often seeing like my traditional art is like a blue tree, like, because it's the contrast to the other thing. You know, now I know there aren't blue trees out there, unless you know, maybe have a few beers. It's to sell like the energy of the moment, and you know, it adds a certain something for me. Yeah.
So how does that help you in terms of color theory with your comic Helga's Horns?
Well, previously with other comic books, I found that I was making a palette that was it was very yellow and oversaturated. So I wanted to make it more kind of, there's that word again, it's coming to my mind, gritty, like slightly less saturated, like different color palette that I wouldn't have used before. And also to do with like, I do like cell shading on the characters for the colors. And I had a technique that I was using before, and it was duplicating the color layer and then laying it on top and then adjusting like the opacity stuff and that. It did the job, but looking back on it, I'm like, no, I wish I hadn't have done that. And then I went with another version where it was the colors and then grayscaled and then put that on top. But then it made it too gray, and then when you printed it, sometimes it didn't give the same results that you were seeing on the screen. From that, I'd seen someone online was doing a demonstration, and that what I ended up doing was desaturating, and it was a grayscale, and then overlaying a color, so it made it a duotone that sat on top for the shadows, and it's like bing, the light bulb came on. That's the interesting thing. Like you're always chasing what's going to be like the new thing that you're attached to, like the dirty bits and the color palette.
But it's got to help your efficiency a lot more now that you kind of have your style locked down for Helga's Horn specifically.
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah. Things changed even in that between issue 1 and 2. When I did issue 1, I had to go through the stages because like I had to get all the pencils done, and then I had to ink, and then I had to color, and then I had to do the color shading, and then the speech bubbles, etc. And I found myself loosening up as I went on. I still keep a very methodical list of what's going on, like what I'm working on, but I'm not slaved to that procedure. Like at the moment, I'm working on a book. I did all the writing first. I always do that. And then I did the layout of the first 3 pages. And I was like, well, you know what? I'm excited to start, so I'm going to pencil. So I penciled the first 2 pages. And then I was like, well, I'm kind of excited to start on the next page. So I inked one of the pages. And then I went back and finished the first of the 3 pages. So I've got 3 pages penciled and 1 ink. So it's like, okay, so you get, it's a looser procedure, but there's still the structure. There's always going to be that. Yeah.
You have 3 issues here. I'm sure you're going to write many more. Would you ever see Helga's Horns adapted into a different medium? You like maybe animation, stage play, even film, TV, something like that?
Yeah, I could see that. Like I've toyed with that before. Like the idea, I've got a poll that I might post with like actors and actresses that could be the characters and what people would think. I may even do a Photoshop picture of it. Once upon a time, I used to do a lot of those, like Photoshop pictures with like different people in films. I did Romancing the Stone with Keanu Reeves and Rebel Wilson and Jack Black, and it was the original poster, but like did them in it. But yeah, I think I could do that with Helga's Horns. I think it would lend itself well to maybe animation for sure. The thing with cinema is unless it's got the budget, it's going to suffer a bit. Maybe with cinema, you'd get too many cooks in the kitchen kind of thing. That would be a worry, but that happens anyway. So yeah, you'd have to kind of roll with it. I'd love to see like Helga's Horns maybe in cinema with the kind of big set pieces like a James Bond movie of years gone by. I think that could work really well. Exploding speedboats and stuff like that. I've got a few ideas that have trickled in from watching Italian horror movies again, which is quite a theme, and old 60s kind of James Bond. I've got a feeling for some kind of underwater segment and maybe a lost world underwater. I don't know. Yeah.
You have a lot to work from.
Yes, yeah. Someone asked me that once before, like, where did your ideas come from? I'm like, my brain is like a sponge. So I kind of like, if you let me in something too long, I soak a bit of it up and soak a bit of this, you know.
Same for me in Jeopardy. My mom always asks, "So how do you know the answers to these?" I got a bunch of useless knowledge up here. Fan feedback and conventions are obviously a big thing when it comes to being a comic creator. I know you've appeared on lots of cons here. Have you ever received any fan feedback or gifts or items from them?
Yeah. So, yeah, I've got a lot of fan feedback on like the characters, in that the characters, they're not muscle bound superhero kind of people. Like they're kind of everyday people looking. And that for me is drawn from like years ago reading Asterix and Obelix, and that I really identified with like Obelix as being a big guy and still going on adventures. So yeah, I got that kind of feedback. And also I had a fan make a fan art, and it's I don't know if you can see it there, that way. It's the band from the first Helga's Hornz book, and it's the artist friend that makes he makes wooden toys, and yeah, he's got a whole line of wooden toys like he does for the Christmas fairs and stuff like that. So
That's amazing.
yeah, it was really neat. He showed up with it at the house. He's like, "I made you this." I'm like, "Oh my god!" So I put it up on the page with like Starsky and Hutch music from the '70s. Yeah.
Could have done the A-Team theme too.
I should have done that. Yeah.
Being the fact that you're a traditional artist and a comic artist here, are you working with physical mediums, or are you digitally creative? Like, what are some tools that you use that are just tantamount to your style?
Actually, I'm a bit of both. I always start with pencil and paper to start with, and then inking is digital, and then coloring and everything else in the process is digital. The digital inking gives me a bit of flexibility for using the images for advertising and all kinds of things like that. But I have to start with, this is, I don't know if you can see it there. That's the 2H pencil.
Classic 2H.
Keeps the artwork really clean, which is important for scanning. And that's something that I started doing way back in time when I was doing other comic books like Kung Fu Engine and Lutu Warrior of the North. So that was way back in the time. Maybe when we first interviewed, I was doing those. Yeah. And the other thing, lots of artists use the kneaded eraser, which is that one you can like put it into a little point to get into little bits and pieces. I can never get on with them, but I use this guy, and it's a Stadler eraser, but it's in a pen shape, so you can get right in and do any erasing. Stays pretty clean, unlike some of the other regular erasers. Sometimes you'll pick up a bit of ink or whatever, and you'll go to erase, and you're like, but that thing has been quite reliable, and the refills are easy to come by. They're like it's almost like a mechanical pencil, but with an eraser instead, So there we go. That's another thing I stumbled across wandering the art store.
Obviously, ideas come in waves sometimes, whether it's the middle of the night or during the day or just observing life in general. Do you have like a notebook that you record ideas on, or do you like speak into your phone and dictate ideas? Like how do you capture the moment that you observe in life?
All of those, anything that's nearby. Maybe a back or a receipt, or the notes on the phone, or an actual physical sketchbook. I'm always running a sketchbook that's to do with the books I'm writing. So if it's handy, the note goes in there. Or sometimes I'm running another sketchbook that's just me drawing for fun, and or drawing pinups or whatever. And it'll often end up in there and get copied across into the or even the high-tech use of Scotch tape and stick it in there. But there's lots of, I think there's scary amount of sketchbooks.
Conventions, obviously, like the convention scene is kind of wrapping up, at least. Well, conventions are all year round, but it depends on your travel schedule. Are there any conventions that are coming up, especially towards the end of this year, that you're going to be attending or you're looking forward to?
Yeah, sure. I'm attending. It's a comic book focused only convention called the Capital Comic Book Convention in Ottawa, and it's on the 30th of November. So I guess it'd be one of the last conventions of the year. I have got a Christmas market I'm doing after that.
Oh, nice.
The convention is totally focused on comic books. So there's comic book sellers, like with back issues and all that kind of stuff. I think it was maybe about a year ago, or slightly further back, that they introduced an artist alley, and it's all to do with some of the comic book shops. So it should be a good event, like with lots of like people that are interested in just comics. There's not going to be like a celebrity guests from like movies and TV and stuff like that. So yeah, should be a good event. I'm looking forward to it.
You mean comic book conventions that actually show comic books? What a
I know
novel concept.
Yeah. What is this craziness?
I know it's going back to its roots. What? No.
Yeah.
Have you been to that convention before? Is this your first time?
It's my first time for the convention. Yeah. We were away. They had one in May, so I missed that. We went back to England for a visit.
Is there a comic book creator or artist whose insights or praise would mean the most to you right now for your work, just on Helga's Horns?
Yeah, well, if it's unlimited, maybe I would love to see what Stan Lee thought of it. Like, but he's not available at the moment. I have had some good feedback from some comic book creators. I had Jim Mafood had a look over Helga's Horns 1. He had it on his Ink Pulp show with Sean Crystal. And I got some good feedback on it. So yeah, it's nice to hear what other people think, And then like funniest thing is I gave it out to my kids as PDFs, and they came back and they're like, yeah, I really like the second one. Any feedback is great, I would love to see what someone like maybe Todd McFarlane thought of it. Ooh, the Astérix illustrator, maybe. Yeah.
Looking beyond Helga's Horns, what's something you wish more artists and writers would explore in comics today?
With writing in general, even, and comic books, is don't tell everyone everything.
Yeah.
Keep secrets. Heard it the other day. There was people talking about writing for second screen. So someone can watch their iPhone and still follow the plot. And it's like, what? I know we've done it. We've probably all done it, like, for sure. If we're honest, we have like watched something whilst looking at something else.
Yep. Background noise.
Yeah, but to write that way, like, it's akin to like the 80s and 90s and like dumbing things down and things like that. It's like, what? I hate that moment in your like favorite sitcom, and it's been on for a few years, and suddenly 2 out of the characters become really dumb for no apparent reason. So it's like, doesn't make sense.
Everyone has one person that inspired them on their path to where they are today. Who was that for you?
Ooh. Definitely for comic books, it was Asterix and Obelix. Like that, I loved Spider-Man as a kid, but what I found was like Spider-Man isn't always the same artist, and you don't realize that as a kid. There's like artists that make this, and then when I found Asterix and Obelix, it was 2 guys. Yeah, for me, it kind of felt like, okay, so like it's like a band. Yeah, a band is the 2 people, 4 people, whatever, that make it, and it's always them. Yeah, definitely them. I was inspired by other people outside of comics. Like I loved Bruce Lee movies and stuff like that. And what else? Cartoons, maybe. Scooby-Doo. Pre-scrappy Scooby-Doo. Love that. I think I've got the box set, and I was going through it the other day whilst I was inking. So
from a professional standpoint, you are a very successful comic creator with multiple issues of not only Helga's Horns, but your other amazing works that you spoke on here today. And I can't wait to see your future career in comics and, of course, fine art, traditional art as well, too. But do you consider yourself personally successful?
Yeah. When you make the correct connection with someone, that's the main thing of art. It's great to get payment and stuff like that. When someone goes, oh, yeah, I really like what you did here, and I see this, and give their own kind of response to it. If I do like an outdoor exhibition that I'm exhibiting my art, I'll go and paint at the side, so I'll do like a live painting also. And the amount of time that brings people in, like they connect to someone doing something that they don't normally see. So like if you see someone working out in a park or something, you're like, oh, what are they doing? And it's the breaking of the norm. Like Tai Chi in a park, you can go and sit there and go, ooh. Or someone painting, so the connection is one of the main things for sure.
The reverse of success is failure. How do you deal with your failures?
You keep moving. If something doesn't work, you keep doing it. If you believe in what you're doing, that undoes it. I had a book. I don't even know if you know that one. It sold maybe 2 copies. And then someone was really annoyed that the second copy wasn't available. And it's like, oh, it didn't do very well. Sorry. It was a weird thing. And it was called Valet Buddha Parking. And it was about a parking attendant who was a monkey and his best friend that was a snake. And he also had a detective agency. And it was all like animals as people, kind of, But yeah, it didn't do very well. If something you don't have the successful outcome, it's just because you didn't connect with the right people, and it will happen.
The younger generation is looking at your work and they're becoming inspired to be creative in their own way. The fact that you have the younger generation currently with you, and they are creative as well too, based on past interviews I've seen, they're definitely down an amazing creative path. How can they inspire the generation that follows them?
Wow, that's a good one. To keep on doing it. There's too many instances of where people were creative and they stop, Even the smallest little thing is to keep doing it, because it's very underrated, like art and creativity and stuff like that. Like you look at schools, they often don't have an art program in the school, which is really sad. And they focus more on the mechanical and the scientific. And the shame really with that is that they were so linked in the past. Like the scientists were also artists because they had to draw what they were looking at to learn it, like the body parts, the flowers for medicine or whatever, they were so linked. And it does link back, like science and art is very much linked together. Like at one point, art is science and science is art. It's just to nurture it and to keep on doing it. And even if your example, like from generation to generation, is, oh, my dad paints on the weekend, or my mum does drawing or makes craft things. It's a very important part of being human. Like it's a meditation because you're very present when you're making something. And it's that old adage of like time flies when you're having fun kind of thing. Like when you're present, time goes by quickly. When you're not, it can go really slow. Like the difference between, so if you're holding a hot rock, 30 seconds can feel like 3 hours, how time can feel different. Or if you're having like a conversation with a good friend out for dinner, it's like, oh, we've been chatting for 4 hours. It didn't feel like it,
If your life was a comic book, what would its title be? And what would its music soundtrack be?
Oh my goodness. Okay, soundtrack jumped to mind. Maybe something electronic. I do like The Prodigy and a lot of that era stuff. But at the same time, there might be some Lalo Schifrin in there as well. Can't be a good bit of flute and bongos.
Oh, yeah.
What would the comic be titled? I don't know. I think it might have a weird name, like Monty Python-esque. Man Carries Pencil, Part 1. I don't know.
That's great. I love it. Well, Steve, I do hate to say it, but that ends this particular episode of Two Geeks Talking. I want to thank you so much for being on the show again.
Thank you.
For those that want to support you, Where can we find you? How can we support you? Website, social media, let's get you out there.
Sure. So website-wise, you can find me at stevecoffin.com. On Instagram, you can find me at Steve Coffin Art. And I recently formed a business alliance with comicdetective.com, where you can get my Helga's Hornz comic books. And if you're in the Ottawa area, a large percentage of all of the shops in Ottawa and also Gatineau, you can get free ship to store. So there's that. And then I think you can buy the comic on Amazon as well.
But support local.
Yeah, we'll go there first.
Well, like I said, that ends this particular episode of Two Geeks Talk. You could, of course, find this interview and 1,200 plus others on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/TGT Media. The podcast you can find at, well, wherever you get your podcasts. Search Two Geeks Talking. That's TWO Geeks Talking. And of course, and as I say every week, everyone has a story to tell. It's up to me to bring that out. Thanks for listening and watching on Two Geeks Talking.